Hi, I'm Karen Montgomery, and I'd like to show you the 90-degree quarter square triangle ruler from Creative Grids. This ruler is designed so that you can cut any quarter square triangle up to an 8-inch finish size. And because it's a quarter square triangle, that means that your block could be as finished as large as 16 inches because it's 1/4 of the block. This indicates the standard block, and this shows you what it would look like in a variable star block. This particular block here is 4 inches finished. The quarter square in here would be 2 inches finished. That means I would be cutting a 2.5-inch strip. The 2 inches plus my 1/4 inch seam allowance on either side would be 2.5. To cut a 6-inch block, I would be cutting a 3-inch strip with a 1/4 inch on either side for a 3.5-inch strip. Once I've cut my 3.5-inch strips, I like to take them and put them right sides together, both pieces that I'm going to stitch so that they're ready to sew. Then I'm going to take my ruler, and if you notice, all Creative Grids triangles have that blunt tip. And then you measure down to the 3.5-inch line, and I'm going to line it up so that the 3.5-inch line is right on the edge of my fabric. That blunt tip will sit right on the other side. Now I can take my rotary cutter and trim both sides. Once I've cut that one triangle, I'm going to rotate the ruler 180 degrees and line it up on this side. Now, when I'm lined up like this, I can cut a second triangle. Now these are in pairs and they're ready to sew. When I sit down to my sewing machine, what I'm going to sew is I'm going to take my triangles, and I like to feed it into my sewing machine with the tip first. That tip gives my feed dog something to grab onto to pull it through the machine. So I'll stitch right down this side here. For this particular triangle, you could also stitch it this direction. But what you want to make sure you do is always put every pair of them together the same way. So if I have the dark purple on top, I'm going to have the dark purple on top on every one that I put through my machine. That way, they'll always end up in this arrangement. If I put through the dark purple on top the first time and the light purple the second time, they're going to end up in the opposite direction. Now, this particular ruler is designed to cut quarter square triangles. However, we can also use it to cut half square triangles. To cut the half square triangles, if you notice, we have grip the whole way around the outside edge and down the center. There's also some additional grips to hold your piece securely. To cut a half square triangle, I can line this up like this on my 3.5-inch line and use the edge of the grip, which is a 1/4 inch wide, to be able to cut my first half square triangle. I'll cut a half square triangle. This piece would get put into my sewing machine this direction, point first. My needle will go in there and come out this way, and when it's stitched together, I will have a half square triangle instead of a 1/4 square triangle. Now that I have the point on my ruler here, the second cut is going to go this direction. I'm going to use the same 1/4 inch grid, line it up like this along here, making sure that the bottom piece that's right here is exactly on the edge, and trim. My second cut will be exactly the same as my first cut. So using the Creative Grids 90-degree quarter square triangle ruler, I can cut both quarter squares and half square triangles.